What's going on, Steve?
Not much, man. Going
Hear me
live.
okay?
Yeah, you're great.
Nice, man. I'm glad we're doing this. It's pretty, I don't know, I think it's putting us out there a little different than what we're used to, you know? So,
Oh yeah,
a little,
definitely,
little off script, but it's exciting.
definitely. So, first few weeks of IBEX method, you enjoyed it so far?
No, it's been good, man. I think we just, with what we're doing, I don't know, like, we had Vince on, we had Greg on. So it's been pretty cool to learn from them and then just be able to kind of stretch our minds and, I don't know, talk more about what are the basic building blocks of an athlete and how to become better, Hey V, how
Yeah,
you doing? Thanks for joining us.
and I like how I think the episode with Vince and Greg both went good hand in hand together because Vince had a nice overall aspect, but we really focused on like the diet and the consistency and a little bit of the training aspect, and then Greg was like pure mindset.
Yeah, no, it was
And I've
awesome.
been really trying to apply that over like the last month because even though we released the episode this past week, we recorded probably about a month ago, a little over a month ago, and it's just it's really helped me over this last month for sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
nice man. So I guess we'll kind of start this off more formally, but and that way the viewers who either are watching it now are going to be watching in the future. So the intent is this is Adam Fouts and Steve Beta. We're with the IBEX Method and IBEX Method podcast. Our intent is to do a monthly live chat, kind of rehashing what some of the episodes were in the past, what we're learning, what our journeys are, kind of what you can look forward to in the future, and then from there, hopefully have some questions and answers filled by you. We will look to, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, we either look to answer some of those questions on the spot, or they may be able to be tied into the next session that we may have at the end of the month, or those questions may be answered in one of our podcast episodes.
yeah. Everything live should pretty much be able to be answered in the current episode. But if you're coming back to watch on either Instagram or on YouTube, please leave comment and let us know what you want us to talk about. Let us know what like questions you want us to answer, and we'll help incorporate all that for everybody because the whole point of this podcast is to help everybody find their way. So if you're not telling us what you guys want, I mean, what can we really do besides do what we want?
Yeah. And again, I think we have a pretty good idea of the generalities of what it takes to be a good athlete. You kind of hit it on. Obviously, we had Vince on who talked about consistency, diet, and then we had Greg on who talked about mindset. We'll talk about some other things. What's going on, Katie? Thanks for joining us. So, Steve, I really love to kind of go back into like where you are in your journey. You mentioned the episode with Greg. If you guys haven't seen that, you can check it out on SoundCloud. You can check it out on YouTube. You just go to IBEX Method Instagram account. Look at the bio. You can find the links there. So yeah, Steve, tell me about your journey right now and how just that episode with Greg has been helping you out with what you're going through.
Well, over the last month, I've been focusing on really like structuring my diet and my training methodology for myself. I have EOE, which is eosinophilic esophagitis, which causes my esophagus to narrow and tighten and cause scar tissue to build up. So once in a while, my esophagus will start closing up, and it'll make it very difficult for me to eat. I'll end up losing weight. I ended up losing probably a little bit over 10 pounds
Wow.
in probably less than a month. So since then, we've started the podcast ever since that happened. We kind of started the podcast when I was at probably one of my lower points. And since doing the podcast kind of really put me in perspective of really focusing on my intake, really focusing and being very intentional with what I'm doing and consistent. And I feel like more recently, especially since the Greg episode, because from talking to him and then editing the episode and listening to it again, it just being able to block everything out and just get mean, mad, and focused. Don't let anything else get in your way. Like, I love it because, like, I like being focused, but sometimes when you're just focused and you don't really have that mean mentality, but like mean mad mentality, like
Yeah.
you kind of like ease up on yourself. You're like, oh, you give yourself little excuses. Like, all right, I only need to do three sets of this, or hey, I hit my reps. I don't need to push past that. But it's really come along great. I've gained 10 pounds in 1 month.
Wow.
Um, Really focusing my diet mainly on a lot of rice. I was telling Adam before here, I was asking him what type of rice. Botan. um, Hit us
Can
up
you
for
hold it up again real
sponsorship.
quick and just hold it for a second? Maybe two.
What's up?
There's kind of a glare. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, the
Nice.
Botan Callus rice. Every time I make white rice or any type of rice, it just the next day it tastes like I'm eating pebbles or something. There's no texture or anything, but this kind, it's usually good for that day and the next day. And ever since I've been eating a ton of rice, focusing mainly my protein source for whole food has been salmon. And I've noticed if I have too much beef, I'm getting more inflammation in my esophagus and in my sternocleidomastoid area, which is very odd, but that's one of the areas where I
Yeah.
get inflamed really quick. Wish I could explain why. It's just that's always what happens. And then also I've been taking carnivore mass by muscle meds,
Okay.
and that gives me an extra 700 calories a day. I usually do
Wow.
that. Separate that into 2 shakes, gives me 50 grams of protein. So really focusing on those things and a lot of cereals and oats, like better cereals like Cheerios and Chex and stuff like that, and just really focusing on
Sorry.
eating as clean as possible. Yes, I do messed up. I've messed up a few times. I love spicy food, and that's probably one of the worst things I could do to myself. So a couple times I beat myself up, but getting back on track quick and fixing those issues, I've been able to gain that weight back. Gain a lot in my measurements. My wife is a physical therapist, and so she has all the stuff to like get all my measurements and stuff. So I've been
Nice.
very happy and really pushing through, focusing mostly upper body and stability for my lower body. So plan on visiting my crew at Hybrid Barbell soon and
Nice.
start working on that lower body because I ended up not getting my squat rack because the company I ordered from kind of duped me. So I got the money back, but it is what it is. I've just been focusing with my adjustable dumbbells in my basement, and it's been great.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, so I know I visited me and Jeremiah and went there. Maybe I'll post a picture of him working out in your basement. But Steve's looking to set up, him and his wife are looking to set up squat rack and stuff like that, right? You still gonna do that, or are you
Oh,
gonna?
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
That's,
she was down there working out with me the other day. We have a treadmill and adjustable dumbbells and some bands and stuff. And she was like, "So I want you to get that squat rack." I was like, "Okay," because I mean, me and her had a few other financial things that came up. I mean, just to be honest, we're in the process of trying to have kids, and we're doing IVF, and it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's what we really want and what we really believe is going to bring us a child. So just took a step back financially for a second, and just want to stay ahead. I mean, we're not behind, but I just don't want to spend money when I'm behind. I just have to be financially responsible too. So
yeah.
I have everything I need at least right now to get my exercise in.
Yeah, I think it ties back to Greg, right? Like just being mad, having no excuses, just finding a way to get it done, really.
Oh yeah, because I'll be honest, there's like 2 or 3 days this week that I really wanted to go and get a lower body workout and at Hybrid, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna come home. But then the weights are staring me in the face right downstairs. So all I have to do is walk down the stairs,
Yeah.
and there's my exercise. I don't have to drive anywhere. It's literally perfect.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think, and I don't know if I touched on this. No, I guess not in the episode with Vince. So I went through Vince Shiree's program, Skating with Vinny, and we had Vince on to talk about. He's a coach, he's a trainer. Again, we kind of hit it on. He talks about consistency, he talks about diet, but I don't know. Getting back in the gym was just like it was a very difficult thing for me, and it wasn't like one was like there's like the stigma of being around other people, but then there's also like there's based on where I worked. So I worked an hour from where I live. They had a fitness center in the building, so there was that, and then at the corporate center of the company that I work for, they had a gym there, and then in the community that I live with, it has a community gym or whatever. But it was like trying to figure out, just not even just one is getting past myself and getting over like dealing with other people in the gym. But then it was like trying to understand the breakdown of the gym to know what workout I'm trying to do and what machines were there to help me do that
Was
work.
it changes or modifications to what you have to do for your
Yeah.
program specifically?
Yeah, and like getting started though, it was like so much frustration because depending on where I worked during that day, I don't know, it was in my mind it was almost like another excuse to not get it done. But then I'm like, but I'm so close to a gym that I just need to go do it. And we have like 8-pound weights at home too. So the days that I can't even go across the street because the kids or whatever, I just whip those out. I got a bike downstairs. Like, there's no reason why I can't do something. So, yeah, I love that, man.
That's awesome. I know lately you've been training hard on the running. Got a big event coming.
I feel like I keep rehashing my journey, but it's been, it's interesting. You said you lost 10 pounds, right? So,
Yeah, but then I gained it back, thank God.
yeah, no, that's awesome. And then, so that was the thing. So I think 2009, I left. I was in the Marine Corps. I ended up getting medically retired for those who are going to be hearing this or don't know. But I was in the Marine Corps for almost 10 years. In 2009, I left Japan, Okinawa, Japan. Got stationed in Nashville, Tennessee. And within 30 days, I lost 21 pounds. And I was just scrapping a ton of blood. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm overexerting myself on workouts. So maybe it's hemorrhoids. And maybe my body's adjusting to the food, like in my new diet and stuff like that. But no, it turns out I had Crohn's disease, and so it's interesting that you talk about. It's like, so what is it? What is it? What's the condition that you have? What's the official name of it?
Eosinophilic esophagitis.
Okay, and it's inflammation of the esophagus.
It's built up white blood cells and like scar tissue. They're still constantly doing like research on it. Like in the past 10 years is when they really started kind of looking into it more.
Okay.
So there's not a lot of things. There's the dilations, which I get done through endoscopy, are like the main treatment for it. But some people believe in like a steroid inhaler or different types of oral steroids. But my doctor feels like there wasn't enough evidence to kind of like put me on them. So kind of holding off on that at the moment. So it's like the only research that's been done is that and medical marijuana, which we actually don't have in Ohio right now. Which it's just the only two things that they've really done research on.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because so I ended up with Crohn's disease. The first thing they put me on was prednisone, which is a steroid, and the idea is that it'll reduce inflammation and stuff, but it definitely comes with its own side effects. And Crohn's disease, I mean, obviously it's not the same, but there is a lot of inflammation. There's a lot of internal bleeding in your gut and the lining of your intestine, and it could go from your mouth down to your rectum, depending on the severity of your condition. So it's just really interesting. I almost feel like they're both digestive in one sense.
Yeah, both GI issues.
Yeah, and it's just, and when you talked about meat, like that was the thing. The whole journey after I got diagnosed was like, okay, like, one, do I start, like, what does my treatment look like? And then is there, like, we found like a drug that worked or whatever, and it was a low drug. But I felt like my doctor, at the time I had a civilian doctor, so just someone out in town, because I was on my own in Nashville. We didn't have a military treatment facility. And I felt like every 2 weeks he wanted to change the drug, and I'm like, are you getting kickbacks from this? I'm like, dude, I'm good with this drug. Like, I don't need anything more, But what I started realizing, and it probably took me, so from Nashville to California, I was in Nashville for 3 years, got a station in California, and in my time there, like, I felt like the culture was healthier eating, and that's when the first time I noticed like a correlation in my health, like improving just by being out in California, and that's when I started learning about food, and like you mentioned how meat kind of, is kind of a trigger, I guess, but I had trouble eating red meats. I had trouble eating a lot of, what was it? like leafy greens, so like kale, spinach, so like hard lettuce type stuff. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I can relate in some regard. So.
What type of reactions did you have when you try to eat like the green leafy stuff? Because I like it doesn't go down right for me. Like, do
Yeah,
you have the
so
after effects or is it like going in is the
so
issue?
because I didn't have inflammation in my esophagus, I had it in my intestines. But when it was like I could feel it stabbing me as it's like moving through my large intestine. And it's like somebody like literally just taking like knives and just or like razor blades from a
Oh
like
God.
a shave like shaver, you know.
Yeah.
That's I think that's the only way to describe it. So it's like and you could feel it because you have so much inflammation that everything's so tight and the food's just moving. It's just like it's like scratching old wounds, you know. I don't know.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Like it was very discomforting. I felt a sense of bloatedness as well as a sense of like just stabbing pains. I guess I don't know if that relates to you at all, but
Yeah, mine's a little different. Like mine just I think it's just the texture and like the consistency of like the leafy greens. Unless I like fry them up like with some type
yeah,
of oil to like lubricate them and go down easier, they just kind of just stick to my throat, and I'm just like constantly like trying to
yeah,
like
and so
get them to go down and up. Like it's rough.
yeah, and I learned, and it's crazy. So I went through Vince's program, and um, let me just so fast forward. I don't know what 2019. So that's 10 years after diagnosis. So now out of the Marine Corps. You know, I will continue to talk about our journeys, but there's a point that my body was so malnourished and so depleted that like my bones started to like deteriorate. I actually developed osteopenia, so now I have osteoporosis in my right hip. Um, what else happened? I don't say this like pridefully, like I hate it. Like trying to run with like I actually found it looks like I have scoliosis at this point. Like I found my medical records and well, so that's why like my back hurts all the time. Um, and I forgot I even had those symptoms. But yeah, so like because of the inflammation now there's like malabsorption, so your body's not absorbing the nutrients that it needs to. And then because of that, um, your body's pulling resources from other areas to protect your vital organs. That's just what it does. Um, so now I'm on all these treatment plans. Eventually, I end up on a drug called Remicade, and it attacks the protein in your DNA or whatever to help reduce the activity of your immune system. So now my immune system is compromised. So I get a lot of sinus infections and stuff. But like with that drug and being on that, like it wore me down. So that was just another side effect. That came with its own. And I couldn't tell. Some days I couldn't tell if it was the drug or if it was the condition itself. And I'm like, I don't know what feels worse, the condition at this point or the drug, But now understanding where I am, I'm a lot better off with this treatment. But now because where I am and where I built up to, I kind of revisited foods that I couldn't in the past. And Vince's program kind of, I'm not going to say forced me into that, but he has a lot of, a lot of red meats. He has a lot of lean meats, and he has a lot of vegetables, carbs, things that like we talk about leafy greens. So in that diet, I've learned that I can have lettuce. It's a softer type of green. I can have green beans because they're cooked. I can't do peppers. I can't, there's other things I can't do. I learned that I now have like some type of allergy to chicken. And yeah, like different meats, more fatty meats seem to like irritate me more. But yeah, it's interesting to like revisit food sources and now understand how they make me feel and be more like now I just eat based on how I feel, I guess.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
um, I don't know where I was going with that, but I think I was just thinking about like the malabsorption and all that other stuff and getting to a point of like now I can eat things, my body's absorbing it, my body's taking it in because the treatment that I'm on is allowing my body to do that. And now that there's no inflammation, there's less than 1% inflammation in my gut now. And I'm thankful for that. And being able to revisit and understand what my body can tolerate and what it can't. It went back to just information that I learned early on from a dietitian called like a low residue diet. And my understanding of it now is like it's basically foods that do not leave residue in your digestive system as you're eating it. You know, so like a lean meat necessarily isn't going to leave residue. Green beans isn't, but something like kale could because of the texture, because of the inconsistency of it. So it's interesting, like to hearing you say that, and then hearing, kind of my mind replaying what I learned and then going to Vince's diet plan. I'm like, wow, like this is what it is. It's a low residue diet, and that's why my body did so well on it, because it's able to absorb a lot of this stuff without any of the consequences of inflammation and whatever else, So it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
But,
dang.
trial
Well,
and error, man.
yeah, we'll loop back around though, but I was just about to tell everyone, just recently you've been accepted to the Marine Corps trials for the 1500 meter.
Yep. Yeah, so that's part of the journey, right? So again, I went to Vince's program. Like I went from like not being able to walk, my treatments wore me out. Again, my joints, everything was kind of atrophying. And I woke up one day from a treatment, and I was like, this is the worst I'm ever gonna feel. Like I'm just gonna, I need to do something, right? So I rolled over. I literally did one modified push-up, and that was like the game changer for me. And that was like, when was that? Maybe August of 2014, maybe September of that time frame, maybe early 2015. But so I started this journey of running again, all this other stuff. But while I was in the Marine Corps, you go to a program. It's called the IBEX, the Integrated Disability Evaluation System, and you can be given what's called a recovery care plan with the recovery care coordinator. One of the plans is like get you into adaptive sports. So if you're wounded, ill, or injured, you can do adaptive sports programs for like camaraderie, be with people that are going through what you're going through. So I wanted to do that. I just wasn't in a place to do that. I also felt like with Crohn's disease, I just felt like an illness. I'm like, I got friends who went to combat. Like they should be doing this. Like they deserve this opportunity. Like who am I, right? I feel like everybody in the military kind of feels that way. It's like, oh, somebody else has it worse. They deserve this program, But I just physically couldn't even do it at the time. But hey, thanks for joining. So fast forward, we're now in 2020. They open up the program, the DoD Warrior Games, Department of Defense Warrior Games to veterans. And I got an email about it. And as I was on Vince's program, I just like, hey, I threw a Hail Mary. I signed up, to apply, and I ended up getting selected. So I got selected in what's called not for the DoD Warrior Games, but it's called the Marine Corps Trials. It's kind of like a preliminary, and it doesn't guarantee you into the DoD Warrior Games, but it's an opportunity to at least be with other Marines going through the same thing, right? The wounded, ill, and injured, whether they're active duty service members or if they're veterans. So 25 veterans got selected for the program. I was one of them. So we'll be competing. The events I signed up for, as you mentioned, was the 1500 meter. I wanted to get my money's worth, so I signed up for the 800. And then I enjoy swimming. I haven't been training for swimming, but I wanted to kind of see what I could do. So I signed up for a breaststroke. I might have done freestyle, like a short 50 meter or something like that. But I don't know, man. I'm excited, and it's kind of, I feel like everything's kind of coming full circle, and I'm getting my health back, and that's what it is. It's like an opportunity for those that have, kind of overcoming their adversity. It's kind of a testament to that. So I'm excited too, just to be around like Marines again, in that mindset. But I don't know, I'm excited, man. And just the history of the 1500s. I ran the mile in track in high school. Ended up burning out probably my sophomore year. Never ran faster than a 4:59 mile. My goal was to get the record for the high school. It never happened. So I feel like it's just an opportunity of redemption. And I think it's crazy that, I don't know, like Crohn's disease was the thing that made me my weakest is kind of my strong point now, It's kind of weird, but it's cool.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. Do you remember what the record was?
Yeah,
Or
427, Mike Yankee. Yeah,
427.
yeah,
Your coach too.
yeah. So I commissioned him to be my my coach for this event. Yep, yep.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, no, the training has been interesting because, again, so one of the reasons I burned out, right, is because like I was a hard worker. I mean, I do say that pridefully because I was a hard worker, but I wasn't a smart worker. That's the problem, right? Like, I didn't know that long days were meant to be easy. I didn't know, like, I was just like, hey, if I'm the first done in practice every single day, I'll be the first done in a race, you know? What I didn't know was I was just beating my body down. Um, and people were seeing it. Like, coaches were seeing it, people were seeing it, but nobody was saying anything. They're just like, hey, this kid's kind of a monster and he's kind of just crazy. Like, and he has a lot of passion for running. Like, we admire that. But nobody's actually coaching me on how to do this right, you know? So I'm revisiting the program with Mike, and a lot of the days we're doing, from a running standpoint, we're doing a lot of rest. Like, there's 2 days that we go hard. Everything outside of that is just kind of putting in the miles. And so I've been able to, for me, I'm like, to get an upper hand, I guess. I'm still going through Vince's program, doing a lot of his workouts. If I feel like my mileage is, or my legs are kind of hurting, I'll switch up my cardio to an arm row or something like that. But yeah, no, it's cool. And it's crazy, just the mindset shift. I'm like, oh man, like my legs feel heavy this week. I need to prove to myself that I can go out and run a 6-minute mile, you know? But I'm like, no, like don't do that. Like it's a rest day. Like you'll have time on Tuesday to do that. You'll have time on Saturday to do that, you know?
Yeah,
So
I just remember like for the last like probably 2 years or so, you've been like obsessed with the idea of shooting for the sub 5 mile.
yeah,
And like now that the carrot's on the stick right in front of you, it's the motivation that you need to kind of push to that next level.
yeah,
It's like actual task at hand, and it's nice because I mean, if you qualify, you go to the DoD Warrior Games. Like, when is that event? DoD.
So yeah, so the Marine Corps Trials is we land at the end of February. We'll compete that following week. It's a 2-week competition. The DoD Warrior Games. So the cool thing is so the Marine Corps Trials is they have it split up between the East Coast and the West Coast, and then they'll have overseas service members come in from like 5 different countries. But for the Marines, it's an opportunity to kind of get your time, showcase yourself, things of that nature. And then you move on. If you get selected, you still have to apply, but you move on to the DoD Warrior Games. There's an application process for that. So then it's the Marine Corps versus the Navy versus the Army versus the Air Force, which I think is pretty cool, you know? So that's why it's called the DoD. So it's the entire Department of Defense. All the services compete against each other. And it's almost like an Olympic, I guess I'd even say Paralympic format within the Department of Defense, which is pretty cool. But that's in September in San Antonio, Texas. So, but yeah, it's interesting, right? I remember 5 years ago texting with you like, "Hey man, I'm back to running. Like I can run again. Like I just jogged a mile, you know." And you're like, "What is your goal?" I'm like, "Well, I think my goal is to run a 5-minute mile, you know." But it went from that to like, my joints just weren't even ready for it at that time. So it went from that to like, all right, if I could do a mile, let me see if I could do 2. If I could do 2, let me see. Then I ended up doing a marathon. And this past year I did my first ultra.
Yeah, because I remember you asking me from like I coached cross country for a few years after coaching track, and you're like, "Well, what do you think I should do?" I was like, "Well, just focus on just going, just get out, see what you can do,
Yeah, yeah.
and we'll kind of like pace from there." It just gave you like a kind of more of a cookie cutter layout, but it was just, hey, you just want to get started. That's what we're gonna do.
That's the one thing you definitely encourage me. Like, hey man, just get your base down. Like, and anytime I started to try to do work, you're like, hey, where's your base at?
Yeah, because you're just gonna just blow your legs out. Like if you don't have anything behind it, it's just.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tried to do stuff before without having like the conditioning.
Foundation, yeah.
And you just wreck yourself. That's all you do, man.
Yeah. Yeah, so I appreciate you and Niz being there. So Niz is Steve's wife, but so there was a time, I think, I don't know, I think it was I was doing, it might have been when I was doing the 324 miles for Justin where I began. I'm like, man, my knees hurt. Like, everything's kind of hurting. And I just became obsessed with running, dude. Like, I hit the marathon in 2016. I hit a marathon in October. I'm like, you know what? If I can do a marathon, I could do an ultra. And I didn't. I got sick. I ran a marathon the next year. And then that following year, I ran a half marathon, me and my brother. And he's like, I was like, dude, I'm pretty sure I can get under, 150. He's like, no, man. Like, he's like, not that day. You wouldn't have got it that day, So I was like, I did the same exact training for another 3 months. Went 146 on my own, But here's the thing, like me and him, he has ankylosing spondylitis, where your sacrum fuses into your ilium. So basically what that means is like your hip bones are fusing together and your hip bones are fusing into your spine, your spine fuses. So there's just a lot of things that come with that, but for him to be able to go out and run is really a miracle. For us to run together after 13 years is pretty miraculous. So it was good to just be able to, he's in Ohio, I'm in Virginia. It was good to be able to get out and train together. And but yeah, so that prompted me to get my strength going from a running standpoint, not really lifting or anything. And you helped me out, man. I'm like, hey, my knees feel blown, like XYZ. You're like, hey, your shoes, and here's some workouts. You and your wife gave me some physical therapy workouts. And
Oh yeah, just for like I knew my knees would always like feel all rough and kinked up, like probably from years of catching and like being a catcher in baseball and track stuff and jumping and basketball, just without proper weight training in the first place. So I had to go through physical therapy, and ever since then I've just kept those workouts and kept running with them. And my wife being in the physical therapy field, she was able to add some extra things to my plate, and then I helped share those with Adam as well. And when we were doing this, was so excited to like help him out too. She loves what she does, so she's really good with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I appreciate it. I mean, that literally helped me keep going. That ended up becoming my dynamic. It was my dynamic warm ups, part of my cool down process. Yeah, I honestly don't think I would have been able to finish even the training cycle, but because of that, I moved on. I ran my first ultra marathon that following month, and then my second ultra marathon on a whim, in October of this year or November of this year.
I remember that week you were like, I feel terrible, and then the next day you're like, oh, I'm running an ultra. I was like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah, so
I felt that was like almost self-destructive. I was like, Jesus Christ, this cat's gonna kill himself. But I mean, like that's half the attitude. You have to have like the drive and attitude. Like you're in the modes. Like sometimes you just gotta push through. Like there's times you gotta be dumb to a point.
Yeah, no, and you gotta understand your body because that's the thing. I'm like, I already did an ultra. I've done all this strength training with Vince. Yes, I haven't. Like we did low mileage because you're mainly doing HIIT stuff, so high intensity interval training. You're doing rows. I did a lot of rows, and then finally got into. I barely did any running because the beginning of the cycle, I ended up almost pulling my hamstring. So, so I did a lot of rowing just with my arms and a lot of cable pulls, and then as the therapy kept going, I built up my legs through biking. But it was crazy because. Yeah, I had my treatment, right? So I had the strength training. I had my treatment. I didn't sign up for anything. I'm just going to focus on my health. I want to recover from the last ultra marathon that I did. And then my friend Olga came down for the Marine Corps marathon. We go to the expo to help her sign up, not sign up, but get her bib and all that stuff, And I talked to the Semper Fi Fund. And I'm like, yeah, I wanted to run this year. And, it just didn't work out for me. I was like, well, if you wanted to run, like, what would you do? And I was like, well, I really wanted to do the 50K because it's like the inaugural 50K. So first time the Marine Corps Marathon's put on a 50K. I love to be a part of it. And I did one in the dead of winter in the backcountry on some mountainside, like crossing rivers 17 times. Like I felt like I was doing more of a Tough Mudder or something like that. But so it'd be cool to do it on the road, and I did. They helped me get signed up. And it was just like, I don't know, no running, no training. I had just commissioned Mike as my coach, and we were I just did a mile time trial, 1,500, did a 5:24. He's like, all right, man, we're going to start a training cycle. And then I was like, well, I just had my treatment. And then next time, like 3 days later, I'm like, hey, man, I'm running an ultra. You know, I text him like, hey, I just signed up for an ultra marathon. I'm running it tomorrow. You know, I'm like, it's the inaugural Marine Corps marathon. He's like, you got to do it. You can't say no. You know, so that was encouraging that he, you know. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's just I learned that my worst days are the days of my treatments, and if I can make those days, then I feel like I can pretty much do anything. I don't say that pridefully, but if that's the lowest of my lows, you know, then I'm I'm doing okay at this point.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and then I would say for anyone that um, hasn't ran an ultra and isn't in a condition to do so and plans on doing it, I realize that running 32 or 31.2 miles, depending on whatever. I realize running an ultra marathon is the equivalent of how I feel after a treatment. That's what I came to conclude.
Yeah, I can imagine doing an ultra marathon with like either minimal training or no training. Because I was always a sprinter in high school, and then during that summer leading into my freshman year of college, I just did like I had a group of friends, like my friend Andrew and me and her would like run like 2 or 3 miles like every night or every other night just because they're like, I was stay in shape, have some fun. And then just on a whim, that September I ran the Akron half marathon.
Nice.
Like with barely any training, and I was like wore flats and everything for it too. I was just racing flats. I was ready. I was like, I went hour 49, but then got home that night. I could not like walk right for 3 days.
Oh yeah.
Like you're just so wrecked, and I was like, what do I do?
Yep.
And it was an experience though. Like those endurance runs are awesome. It's just you got to have the desire to keep wanting to do them.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to keep going longer, but for now I'm focusing on. I knew in order to get to the next level, I needed to do strength, so that's why I did Vince's program. And now that I have it, I'm like, all right, like wow, like strength actually helped me get my foot speed down a little bit. Let me see what I can do there, you know. And
Yeah.
you know, the cards unfolded in the sense of like I got contacted for the Marine Corps trials. I applied. I got selected. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just I'm just very thankful for where I am right now, I guess, and you know, I don't know, but yeah, my goal is to eventually get to a 50 miler, 100 miler. You know, we'll get there, but
Well, let's see where your 1,500 meter time comes in. That you just might want to keep going with that, and keep going lower and lower and lower.
well, and that's the thing, right? If I can do well, and I think I'll do well at the Marine Corps trials. I mean, we're doing some pretty good pacing right now for the workouts that we're doing, and I think I am running faster than I did that day of the time trial, which is pretty cool. So I'm interested to see how that plays out, and then from there, it's just a matter of I have to keep it going until September. Um, so I'm trying to get selected and trying to compete in that, you know. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, there's a 50 miler in May that Mr. Bill Collins, he's part of the Ainsley's Angels, and um, so Steve and I helped to put on an event in our community for a friend of ours, a fallen officer, Justin Leo, and I was contacted on Facebook the first year, and they're like, hey, do you guys allow strollers at this? And I was like, you know what, like, yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, knowing Justin, I'm like, yeah, like he loves everybody. I don't care who you are, like, come, you know. Um, so it was a athletic rider. You can look it up, Ainsley's Angels. And one of the officers in Girard, Ohio, ended up being the runner for the athlete rider. But Bill Collins was I think he's a regional coordinator in Ohio. But yeah, I think he's turning 50 this year, and he's trying to do a 50 miler in May. So when I was home for Christmas, I got to go do some running with him. It was cool to just kind of catch up and have real conversations outside of Facebook. But that might be in the works. I just got to talk to my running coach about it. You know, so we'll see.
50 miler while training for your 1,500.
Yeah.
Get your full base mileage in one day.
Yeah.
That's great. But man, doing good things like that, like seeing those kids, like it just cheers you up seeing them out there getting
Yeah.
pushed and stuff, and it just makes you feel good to be part of it and stuff, and see how active like you're starting to get involved with that. It's just really exciting, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, so I wrote some notes down, man. Just kind of, I wanted to go back to some of the things that you touched on earlier. You mentioned, I know I kind of went down a rabbit hole on it, but you mentioned eating cleaner. So my first question is like, what does that mean, eating cleaner, and how is that changing your overall condition?
Well, for me, it's more making smart choices. Like trying to go more bland, I'd say. Plain white rice. Sometimes I'll just put a little bit of like salt and garlic pepper on there a little bit just to keep things simple. Nothing that'll mess with my gut or anything. Or it's not even my gut. My gut doesn't really bother me. It's just sometimes a little bit of the reflux comes back into my esophagus.
Okay.
So been really focusing on like more bland foods and protein sources that just don't make me feel wrong. I think that's the only way to say it. Like I had some steak today just 'cause I've been testing things out a little bit to see like what my threshold is for beef. I tried to have some ground bison last week, and that was just a terrible mistake. It tasted delicious. It
I
was
was gonna say
amazing.
ground bison tastes amazing, but
It's amazing. It's
yeah.
literally like the best meat like I've ever had. But then like instantly, I was just like, right in here, just everything kind of like locked up.
Wow.
This part right here always gets swollen, especially on the right side. And so I know to cut that out now. So um, just kind of taking a big step back, which is weird because the protein powder that I use is beef isolate. So I'm wondering if it's just the other components in the steak or whatnot. Because it's mainly after if I meal prep and I have steak and the next day I'll eat it, I'll feel not quite sick, but just I'll feel extra itchy in the throat and a little extra inflammation. So I don't know what it is, man. But I had some today. Had about 6 ounces. I think I probably cut that back to like maybe four next time just to see how
Okay.
that works. But salmon has been great for me. I've been buying like 2 pounds of it at a time and just bulk making it, and I'll have some meals, like 2 or 3 meals a day from that. Um, I said dry bland cereals, and that's just been really just being good to my body.
Yeah, that's good.
Um, I know just the last couple of days I made some oopsies. I had my spicy ramen, which once in a while, like I dip into. Like I'll make a ton of ramen and eat it, but if it's spicy, I've gotten smart enough not to drink the hot spicy broth
Oh,
afterwards. So
okay.
I'll just do it for the flavoring and just kind of like shake all the extra thing off just to get the flavor. But even then, it's probably not the smartest thing to do more than like once every other week for me. Because
It
if I do
takes
it like that, I'm like very sparingly, it's okay. But
yeah.
if I'm eating sweets or anything like that too, like my wife makes awesome cupcakes. She made these like white white cake ones with like a pure strawberry frosting. Like she like ground like blended up actual strawberries and made the frosting and stuff. It was so good. So I've been kind of going overkill on those for the last few days. So I'm like too much sweets and then
Yeah.
like just making the bad food decisions. So my esophagus has paid for it the last couple
Yeah.
of days, but it's more motivation to kind of just get back on track to eating health because you're like, well, if I stop eating this garbage, I mean, I was gonna say something else, but just because you're so mad at it, like I don't know how PG we want to stay here, so I'm just trying to keep it simple.
Yeah, we'll
But
keep it clean on live, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, we'll see how it goes. But it just makes you feel like garbage, man, and like you're just more motivated to just eat the right things. It
Yeah.
doesn't even have to be difficult. All the stuff tastes good. Like I love salmon. I season it with salt, pepper, garlic, salt, garlic, pepper, and a little bit of paprika and a little bit of onion powder. It's simple. It doesn't mess with me at all. Tastes good that day. Tastes good the next day. Between that and rice, I'm set. So I just try to make the smart decisions of stuff that doesn't make me feel like trash after I
Yeah.
eat it. Like whether it's right afterwards or sometimes stuff will hit you weird probably like an hour or two after you eat it.
Hmm.
That's probably more reflux based for me. But That's basically it, man. Just finding what works for you and what makes you feel good. Like, and that for me, that took literally cutting everything else out of my diet and just eating nothing but like rice and salmon for like 3 days straight just to see how it was reacting on me. It
Yeah.
was a little overkill, but like I didn't eat anything else for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I've learned I can have some egg whites, probably about half to three-fourths of a cup of it. Anything over that kind of like wrecks my stomach.
Yeah.
It sucks because I love egg yolk. It's so good, but like that just
Wow. Yeah.
can't get out. I mean, I can't get off the toilet when I'm on it,
I
man. Like
got you.
there's no way around it. Like this podcast is talking about poop half the time,
No, it's I mean,
but
but it's all part of balance, right?
yeah, exactly. So like I said, I've tried some egg whites. I go light on the egg whites, and slowly introducing other stuff. Oatmeal's been awesome. Just plain cereal like Cheerios and stuff. So slowly but surely, I'm adding more things and taking more things away, and just experimental. And I'm only a month in of taking it extremely seriously, other than the last couple of days. But I need to get back on track.
Yeah. Yeah. See, so it's crazy because a lot of things that you mentioned, the things that I found in my own journey was like portion control. Like I learned that so I wanted to like, I don't know, man, I wanted to branch out into like plant-based proteins. And so in the middle of Vince's program, again, we do a lot of meats from animal proteins. And then I did green beans, I did lettuce. So that was like but yeah, so egg whites, you mentioned egg whites. So we did those. But I was like, I want to branch out into plant-based. And so I was just an idiot. And it's kind of funny. V was on here earlier, but I was messaging her one day because she has a friend that had Crohn's disease and asked me questions. And I'm like, yeah, like, she's like, how are you doing? I'm like, oh, she's back. So, yeah, so she's like, how are things going? I was like, oh, I'm eating salad. I'm eating beans. Like, I'm doing really well. And then all of a sudden, like the next day, I'm crapping blood. But what happened is I had a whole can of refried beans. And I started freaking out because the first time I saw blood in years. And I'm like, all right, well, Vince's diet's working. This wasn't a part of the diet. Let me just go back to the diet that worked. And within like the next 2 to 3 bowel cycles, I was fine again, right?
I'm just laughing at the fact that you ate a whole can of refried beans. Like this is not part of the diet. It's like, oh, I just feel like eating a giant can of
Well,
refried.
it's just like I'm getting my fiber, so that it's meeting the carb and
The macro, yeah,
yeah,
makes
yeah, the macro concept, and it has protein, So I'm like, I'm meeting my protein requirements, and I'm doing the carb thing, and I'm doing the veggie thing. My body's like, no. But I did after about a month because I was scared, man. About a month. I mean, again, within like, I went back. My original mindset was like, oh, now I need to eat other inflammatory foods like white bread and blah blah blah, so I can soothe my stomach. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Let me just go back to what worked. So I revisited beans again in probably like maybe 2 months later, and yeah, I know. How are you? We were just talking about you. I was telling about how I ate a whole can of beans, started pooping blood from my Crohn's disease, and your friend has Crohn's disease, and you're asking me questions, and I realized it was a bad idea. But 2 months later, I go and I revisit these beans, and I actually have portion now. I only have a fourth of a cup as opposed to an entire can, and I was fine. My body accepted it, and I was totally fine. And it was very interesting. So when you mentioned portion control, that's huge. Like I could have, I can have like a fatty steak or whatever at 4 ounces, but I can't do it at 6 because it messes me up. So, I like that. And a lot of things you talked about sound like low residue foods. Like you can have oatmeal in a low residue diet. You can have egg whites, minimal egg yolk because the yolk is a residue. Like it's very, I don't know. I look more into it, but I'll have to do more research on it.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I've never heard of like the low residue stuff. Like I try to like gear myself towards Mediterranean for a second, but then I
Okay.
noticed like some of the stuff in there, like peppers and stuff, like that peppers wreck me. Like the esophagus just burns instantly. So I've learned to not do that. So
Yeah. So we have one question. The question is, what is this? So, Miss B, my name is Adam Fouts, and this is Steve Beta, and we are both athletes. We're both, well, Steve's a trainer, um, and we together decided to kind of, I don't want to say document our journeys, but we wanted to inform the masses about, how to be a well-balanced athlete. Coincidentally, we both have, I want to say EOE, maybe autoimmune. I'm not sure.
Gastro gastrointestinal issues.
Yeah, so we both have that going for us. But so those are the things that we're overcoming. But the point of what we're trying to do is every month we'll go live with what's called the IBEX method, and our intent is to kind of just rehash some of the episodes that we had within the past month, and then we'll kind of talk about where we're headed, our personal journeys, and then if you have questions like you yourself who had a question, we'll go ahead and field those. Hi, Becca.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah, and the plan is the last Wednesday of every month we plan on going live and doing a Q&A, and either just wrapping up questions that are posted either on YouTube or people that watch this later. But if people are asking live, we want to answer everything as they pop up. But every Thursday we post a different episode of the IBEX Method podcast on SoundCloud and on YouTube. So if you like watching something with video, you can see our faces and our guest faces. Or if you just like to listen to stuff in the car, you just pop it on SoundCloud. We're hoping to have it up on iTunes here shortly, so just stay tuned for that. It's every Thursday.
And again, so the IBEX Method podcast it's a way for us. We're going to talk about basically the foundational requirements or the building blocks to be the best version of yourself. So in our introductory video podcast, we just talk about more in depth of what that is. But we look at the entire package of an athlete, how to be a better version of you. And you don't have to be like a top performer. You could be an everyday individual looking to get into, whether it's running, lifting. But we do see across all these areas that there are key elements that are required to help you have balance and just be well developed. So the intent is to inform you. So we'll bring in, we'll have our discussions based on the knowledge that we have, or the things that we're learning. And then we'll also bring in, key guests to talk about key areas such as strength, mindset, diet, physical therapy, things of that nature. So
yeah, so if you're definitely interested, go check out our first couple episodes. We have an intro episode and 2 episodes. We have a trainer as a guest, and we also have a retired Marine who focuses on mindset, and the dude's jacked. So go check him out. He's awesome too. And then we have a couple episodes of just with me and Adam talking. One next episode that we're going to be posting next week is based off the documentary The Game Changers, and that's it's talking about plant-based diet. And we kind of go over our ideas on that and kind of branch off and go into what we talk about with how we're chasing our optimal diet. And then we also have 2 trainers from the gym I was training at, Hybrid Barbell. We have a couple cool people doing that. And then last we have a former world champion strongman, Richie Stout, coming on soon, and he's phenomenal. That episode's great. And I know we're talking in the episode, we talk about him trying to qualify for the Arnold Classic, and he did qualify, so he's getting geared up for that. I hope to have him on right before that or right after. That'd be really great because he was a phenomenal guest to have.
Yeah, no, I love. We'll talk more about him in the upcoming weeks, but yeah, definitely for sure. And if you want to find our information, you can just follow us on Instagram. It's IBEX Method. And again, within the IBEX Method link in our bio, you can find the SoundCloud podcast as well as the YouTube podcast as well. So, you got anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's it, man.
Okay. So, you kind of already hit on this, but the other question I had. So the first thing I asked was like, what does a clean diet feel like? What is that? Eating clean. So I think one thing I liked what you talked about too is like it's kind of based on a feel. Like your body's gonna tell you like, hey, this isn't good for me. Or like I don't, like I should probably not eat this because this is the reaction that I get. I think that's one good way of looking at it. And somebody told me to look up, I think it's called the AIPS diet or something like that. I'll have to do more research on it, but I think it's kind of the concept of like, and I'm probably totally off base here, but it sounds like it's identifying foods that you can have, how, like, eat something, see how it makes you feel, and if it makes you feel like crap, just do away with it. Like, don't eat it, you know?
Yeah, that's the approach I'm taking, basically. And
Yeah.
it's been working great.
Yeah. And like, I was like, I think I've done that in the past. I just never knew there was a name for that, you know? So the other thing I wanted, you mentioned in your situation, like you have a protein powder that you go to. So my question is have you tried different protein supplements, and then have you noticed like different ways they make you feel, and why do you choose what you chose?
It's always been like a weird search for me when it comes to protein. The first one I was able to ever have was egg white protein, and it worked great. But then it started making me feel sick. But that's when I realized I was developing an almond allergy. I was using almond milk.
Oh, wow.
Like out of nowhere, I was drinking almond milk and it was working great for me. And then all of a sudden, it was making my throat cake up and make me feel nauseous. So I thought it was the protein. So I stopped taking the protein, and then one day I just had like some chocolate almond milk and I felt sick. So I was like, oh, well, and I just haven't really revisited egg white protein since then.
Okay.
But also, I mean, I branched out and tried carnivore protein once, the regular kind, not the mass, and it made me feel really good. The only kind that made me feel kind of rough was the peanut butter, which also I figured out peanuts are starting to mess with me too. So
Okay.
I went to just straight chocolate, then I tried the vanilla caramel. Both of those were great, and I did the mass gaining one now just to get to more calories, plain and simple, because yeah, I could add like waxy maize to a regular one, which is like a corn-based carb.
Okay.
And but this one's already pre-mixed, it's ready to go. I don't have to second guess anything. I know exactly what I'm getting. I know it works good for me, and I love the taste, and it just works, man. I've tried plant-based stuff. Pea protein makes me very ill.
Okay. Wow.
And all the other ones just have weird consistency. I've tried like brown rice protein and it tastes like you're eating like chalk. Like I can't explain it. I don't like any of them, and so I finally just found one I liked, and I'm sticking with it until something happens or something doesn't. Hopefully nothing happens except for I keep gaining my weight. So
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, so it's interesting. I want to get back to that too, the weight gain thing again, because well, yeah, we'll hit on that, but I did notice like in Vince's program, he recommends a specific protein source, and he doesn't get kickback from it. He thought it was a good source of protein, you know, like protein powder. Prior to my shipment coming in or whatever, I did a plant based. It was good. I went to Wegmans, found a basic plant based, and then my wife had she had like old. I don't want to say old, but it's probably a couple months old. You know, protein powder from GNC, and so she has a pre-made that she has in the fridge, and then she also bought like in bulk the powder, right? But she's like, nah, I bought both, but I decided I like the pre-made. So I tried the pre-made, and I felt like those create more of a like mucusy feeling, and I feel gutted. Thanks, Becca. I just feel gutted, like literally, like I feel sick from, and I don't know why, but I just feel sick when I try it. So then I was like, let me try her powder protein, and I felt like I'm trying to describe it, but I felt like real jittery and stuff like that, and then like the jitters wore off, and then I just felt depleted, right? Like, and then what I learned is that they actually have high fructose corn syrup crystals in it. Yeah, so I just found that like I just can't do high fructose corn syrup based stuff or sugar based proteins. Like it makes me feel like crap. And then she bought some Shakeology, which is plant based. And it's not anything against, it's not anything against Shakeology, but they have sugars in theirs too. And when I tried it, it was like the same thing. Like it tastes good, whatever. It doesn't feel satisfying.
mm-hmm.
And then she ended up buying me the protein that Vince recommended. And I'm on these different proteins for months or whatever because she bought it. I'm trying to save money, you know. Excuse me, but um, what happened? So I had this protein and it was like so refreshing to my body. I was like, this is like, it's not even being biased. This is just how my body absorbed it, you know.
Yeah,
And
well, that's why I like this carnivore mass so much. Like, I don't put the same amount of water. I put more water than it suggests, and it's basically like drinking like water. Like it's got the consistency of water, but like tastes like a shake, which is awesome. And
yeah,
like I don't even like notice it, but it just fuels me, and I could tell the difference. Like, well, clearly, like it helps me at least maintain my weight when I can't eat because of my EOE, or
yeah,
if I'm eating everything consistently and going good, it gives me that extra anywhere from 500 to 700 calories that I wouldn't be getting elsewhere.
nice, man. No, that's good. And the last thing I wanted to touch on was like, you're trying to gain weight, and I almost used the same method, but I ended up slimming down, you know?
Yeah, I after seeing your before and after pictures, like it's not like you seem big in the first place, but
Right.
like clearly like you just redistributed, like you're just in way better like physical shape now.
Yeah.
Like I was like sitting there too, because like I didn't think you were overweight or anything originally.
Right.
I was like, I was like, he's losing weight. I was like, I thought he was planning on gaining weight, but it was
Yeah,
just,
no, it's a weird process. Like,
yeah. But I feel like if you were like skinnier like me, like I can't ever eat or not have problems eating anything.
yeah,
So, like, if you had my issue and you were on Vince's program, you probably would have gained weight but had similar results. Like,
right.
and that's what I'm learning through training and doing things on my own and testing different areas. It's not about like what you do, it's how you do it and
Yeah,
modifying to do so. Like, if you're trying to lose weight, get the right things, just eat a little bit less of it. Like, might have to play around with it a little bit, but first thing, just eat better and
yeah,
then modify the amount. If you want to gain weight, find what's good for you, and find a way to increase it. And that's it.
yeah, yep,
It's pretty much plain and simple.
yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, and I ended up yeah, no, it's true. And what did I end up doing? I think I was 153 in that one photo, but welcome back, V. Um, but I realized my ideal weight is between 155 and 158, maybe 160, and I'm cool with that, you know. So like, I did all that, and then I go into I go into the holidays or whatever, and I gained everything back, but I still look better than I did, you know, in that original photo. I was like, I didn't realize I looked like this, you know. So
Hmm.
it's interesting. And now because I'm running more, like my body's just demanding more carbs. So I've been like, it's weird. Like my physique is the same, but I do weigh more. And I realize that carbs like help your body, you know, like sustain your weight basically. So
Yeah,
and we
definitely.
weren't. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. Yeah, we weren't carb depleting. It was just we were carb cycling. But what are you gonna say?
Oh, no, so that's awesome. Just listen to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And yeah, because you said about like 150 is your optimal. I was like, most I've ever been is like 140, and that's when I was like, my esophagus was okay. I was actually going to Nash Dog Barbell in Youngstown. Really good strength coach. Had my diet relatively in check. I was just able to eat anything though at that point. Like if I eat anything it's consistent, I'm hitting the macros, I'm going to gain weight.
Yeah.
And that's when I was probably like early 20s. And man, I got up to 140 and it was great. Like just for perspective, when I lost all my weight, I got down to 113 and I'm up to 123 right now. And when I first got diagnosed with EOE, I was down to like, I think it was like 104, 105 for a second. So it it kind of just like it drains your will to live almost for a second because you're like, I can't eat anything because I can't literally swallow anything. You lose your
Yeah.
reflex and it's just terrifying. But Thank God for modern medicine.
Yeah, no, I'm like, I think we talk about it in one of our podcasts where I'm like, I do think that food is good. Food is the medicine, but I'm also thankful for a brain that God has given where we can use modern medicine to our benefit, and I mean, honestly, I am where I am because I was given Remicade, and as much as I hate drugs and modern medicine, like I'm better off today because of it, So I'm thankful for it as much as I feel like it's a kryptonite. Welcome back, Becca. So, no, I agree, man. That's awesome. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's it. Like, I think that was a real good recap of what we've been going over and kind of a nice little update on where we're both at right now. And guess we'll meet back up end of next month when you're in California.
Yeah, no, for sure. So we're about to close out, but before we do, I know we have a few people tuning in. Do you guys have any questions about anything we discussed today? About the IBEX Method podcast. Again, we look to do this the last Wednesday of every month. And the idea is pretty much overall health, whether it's mental, physical, diet, things of that nature. So, any questions before we sign off? All right. Well, I appreciate you all. What's that?
Just kidding. I said wait for it.
Yeah. Appreciate you all tuning in. Again, we're gonna I'll be hosting for a while, I think, until we put up our audience on the IBEX Method Instagram. But go ahead and follow the IBEX Method Instagram account. You can tune in, find all the podcasts on there. We're on SoundCloud, YouTube, and as Steve mentioned, we're going to try to make our way to iTunes. But we appreciate your time, and I think it's the first good month, Steve. So thank you.
Yeah. So I'm glad we started this, and it's been great. It's brought us even closer together again, and getting us to meet a lot of different people, and hopefully we're going to help a lot of people along the way.
Yeah, no, I hope so too, man, for sure.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for listening today. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate the support.
All right, have a good one.